And welcome to this meeting of Executive. Before we move into the formal opening of the meeting, what I will do is read out the emergency evacuation announcement. There are no planned fire drills, so if the alarm activates, please leave the building in an orderly fashion via your nearest fire exit. The two fire exits through the partition doors are currently not in use due to ongoing works. Therefore, the fire exits are through the main doors of the hall or the storeroom adjacent to the stage. The fire assembly point is the roundabout island in front of the main entrance of the building. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by council staff. Please note that the meeting will be audio recorded. Please switch off mobiles or turn them to silent. Toilets and hand washing facilities are available in the foyer area. Members of the public, while you are of course entitled to film or take photographs during this meeting, can I please emphasise to you that this should be done without disruption to the meeting and can only be done from a designated area in the public seating. Can I please therefore ask you to raise your hand clearly in the air if you wish to take photographs or film this evening? I thought there'd be one. The clue is there. Right. I think none of that is relevant. Members, there is a need to use microphones during the meeting. When I invite you to speak, please wait until there is a microphone in front of you before speaking, as microphones are needed for the hearing loop and for the audio recording. These are all switched on, ready for you to speak, so you do not need to adjust them. Please make sure that the microphone is directly in front of you before speaking. Members, voting will be done on a show of hands in line with the Constitution. I will ask for a show of hands for and then against recommendations, and will also ask for a show of hands for those wishing to abstain from voting. Alrighty. Good. Right. Good evening, members. Good evening, officers, and good evening, members of the public. Welcome to this meeting of the Executive, today, the 9th of November 2022. We move first of all to item 1, apologies for absence, and I think everyone is here on the Executive, so no need for any apologies. 2, non-members attending, and looking in the audience group, I can't see any non-members attending. That takes us to 3 minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of October 2022. Members, are you agreed that they're an accurate record and I can sign them? Agreed? Thank you, members. Right, item 4 is to receive any declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. Okay. Item 5, questions on notice from councillors. Members, there are none. Item 6, matters referred to the Executive and reports from other committees, and again there are none, which takes us neatly to item number 7, which is the Quarter 2 Financial 2022-23 Financial Management and Performance Update Report. I, along with assistance from Naomi Lucas, will introduce the report. Executive members are asked to note the Quarter 2 revenue budget and capital position set out in sections 3 and 4 of the report and detailed in appendices 1 to 4. Executive members are also asked to note the Quarter 2 performance position set out in section 5 of the report and detailed in appendix 5. The latest revenue budget is £13.1 million. Changes to the original budget are due to drawdowns from reserves, which are detailed in Appendix 1. The forecast outturn at Quarter 1 is £13.2 million, which gives a projected overspend of £100,000. The forecasts within the report included an estimate of increased pay inflation in 2022 to 23, which has now been confirmed and includes other known cost pressures where this information is available. However, it should be noted that there are financial risks arising from the current economic outlook, which cannot be quantified with accuracy at this stage, but which are likely to impact adversely further on the Council's cost of services over the course of 2022 to 23 and beyond, but which could not have been foreseen at the time of the budget being set at the start of this year. It should also be noted that the financial position does not yet fully reflect the cost impact of changes agreed under the One Team Strategic Partnership Programme, which are still subject to change, pending agreement of final arrangements and recruitment to vacant posts. The variances across individual portfolio budgets are set out in more detail in the body of the report and at Appendix 2. Whilst the Council is not currently anticipating the need to reduce services in year, the financial position will have to be closely monitored over the rest of 2022-23 in the light of significant inflationary pressures it is facing. This is likely to make budget setting for 2023-24 and beyond even more challenging than normal. The latest capital programme budget for 2022-23 is £6.4 million. The forecast outturn on the Council's capital programme at Q2 is £4.3 million. The major item with slippage against the revised 2022-23 budget is the Asset Delivery Programme, pending agreement of the stop-go decision point. The table at Appendix 3 summarises the projected capital position by service area. Appendix 4 sets out key financial indicators for the Council in more detail, and Appendix 5 sets out performance against the Council's other key performance indicators in more detail based on the known position at the end of Q2. I would like to conclude this report by saying that Rochford District Council does not have any borrowing and thus avoids expensive loan and interest repayments. It has no investments and therefore, unlike many other councils, avoids these associated risks. It is visionary in recognising the financial challenges facing local government by, for example, the excellent partnership arrangements with Brentwood Borough Council, with, among the many other benefits that brings through the creation of a one-team strategic partnership and shared services approach, and the consequent cost benefits that gives us. Furthermore, we need to press ahead with cost efficiency by maximising the use of our assets. We have a long-standing and proven history of prudent and responsible financial management within Rochford District Council, and under my leadership, that will be the continuing theme of our administration. Members, I don't know whether there are any questions that you wish to ask on the report before you tonight. No? No hands up? In that case, I will move to the decisions being recommended, and I'll read them out at 1.1 and 1.2. That the Q2 2022/23 revenue budget and capital position set out in sections 3 and 4 below and detailed in appendices 1 to 4 be noted. Members, are they noted? Thank you. And I move on to 1.2, that the half-year performance update at section 5 and appendix 5 be noted. Members, noted? Noted. Thank you. We move on to item 8 on the agenda. And can I turn to Councillor Williams, I believe, in conjunction with Director of Communities and Health, Tracy Lilly, to work with each other to introduce the report and answer any questions. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. The decision being recommended this evening is to review the current version of the Joint Cost of Living Action Plan for Rochford and Brentwood, as agreed by the Executive on the 27th of September. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank...
Can I just interrupt you for a moment? I think we've just got a little bit of a problem on the sound. Can you just project your voice into the microphone? And Can we just make sure the sound...
So I could hear me.
Yeah?
Couldn't hear me. I'll say it again. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. The decision being recommended this evening is for members to review and note the current version of the joint cost of living action plan for Rochford and Brentwood as agreed by the Executive on the 27th of September 22. Thank you, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Tracy for all of the hard work that she's done, and I'd like to hand it over to Tracy to take this on. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to provide some update on the progress that we've made, we've now had the first working group where we involved our partners, which was actually a really worthwhile experience and quite heartwarming, really. They were very grateful for our support. We're now working on 2 task and finish groups. One is around developing a comms plan, because I think that's key. And like I've said before, we're enablers in this. We're not going to solve the cost of living crisis. So the comms plan is key to that. The other is around data collation. So what the plan is, as I've said before at this executive, we will bring back a dashboard to show the impact of the cost of living rather than keep bringing the action plan, because it's kind of irrelevant in a sense. The action plan is for us to look at and collate everything that we're doing. In terms of some of the good things that came out of the working group, one of the things that was suggested by Essex Police was their involvement in the cost of living crisis is usually at crisis point when they're dealing with domestic situations. And one of the things they said would be really helpful to them is to have a QR code on their phone that if that domestic situation was as a result of financial pressures, then they could show the QR code to that individual or give them a business card. So we're working on that. We're also working on a digital campaign, which I'm really proud of, actually, because one of the concerns that's been raised from actually Brentwood and Rochford is the communication with our residents. And there have been some requests to do a leaflet. And what I've said, I've been very clear about the leaflet. It will end up looking like an Argos catalogue and it'll be incorrect the minute it's printed. My focus is about making sure we get the messages out there at the point and at the earliest possible convenience. So the digital campaign is not about digital, it's about being able to give that information to our partners so that we can get it out there quickly. And we're developing it along a strap line of by your side. And one of those things that we're trying to do, which is key for us, is removing the stigma attached to, believe it or not, the cost of living crisis. And one of the concerns is for people that have never been in crisis before and have been quite financially stable that are not going to be financially stable. They might not be able to pay their mortgage, whatever the situation is. So it's just trying to remove the stigma to say that we are by your side, and if you need any help and support, and if it's a first-time situation for you, then come to us and we will provide it for you. And I think that's it. We've just developed the action plan a bit more in terms of the business support that we can offer. And also we continue to update the web pages, and they've just been updated today. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Councillor Williams, ably assisted by Director of Communities and Health, Tracy Lilly. Thank you very much indeed for that report. Members, any questions? No? We have committed to bringing a report back to every executive. That means on a monthly basis, we're reminding ourselves of the importance of the period that we're going through and the impacts of cost of living. I'm appreciative of that update. I thought at the last full council meeting there was a very good question and a very good debate. In fact, it was a motion, but I thought it was an excellent debate and reflects the concern that we all have as individuals to face this corporately. There's an awful lot of good work going on out there. There's quite a bit of overlap with different agencies in a desire to be supportive. And you and I, Tracy, were at the Essex County Council Cost of Living Summit on Monday. And I found that quite a reassuring experience to know that we've actually got out there along with others, and we're at the forefront of doing the best. Just remind me, on our website, is there an easy press button on the front page for this?
Yeah, we updated it again today because what we've done is we've got the cost of living page and then we've got some of the links to Essex because there's more information from an Essex perspective. But I just forgot, actually, rudely of me, the £5,000 that was allocated to the establishment of warm hubs. That's being kind of handed out through RABs, and we've already had someone approach us for that, so that's really positive. And what we're doing through that is saying not only can you make an application to our fund, there's also the Essex fund as well. So that was a real positive.
Right, and that was the £5,000 that was requested in that motion, and which we all unanimously supported and agreed. And I'm pleased that that work has got underway. But if you go onto the Rochford District Council website, at the front page you can click on. And I do take your point that this is such a fast-moving picture, it's very, very difficult to get to those people that aren't perhaps quite as digitally competent. But I think the message has got to be out there that if we know through the communities that we represent of people that aren't able, then we encourage them to talk to a relative. I'm sure there's someone in the family that can click on and get guidance. Signposting, you know, unfortunately, much as we would like to, we don't have a magic money tree to solve everyone's issues, but what we can do is point to partners that can be supportive. So thank you very much indeed for that report. No further questions? Okay, in that case I will turn to the decision being recommended at 1.1 on page 8.1, and that's for members to review and note the current version of the joint cost of living action plan for Rochford and Brentwood, as agreed by the Executive on the 27th of September 2022. Agreed and noted? Thank you. Members, turning to item 9, agenda item 9, I'm going to turn to the Chief Executive to update us on item 9.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm addressing the meeting this evening as Chief Exec to request the item 9 is withdrawn from the agenda this evening and considered at a future meeting. The reason for this has become evident that there's been a number of questions and areas in the report that require further information to reassure members ahead of any decision being taken. Officers will work with members with the intention of bringing back an updated report at the earliest for consideration at December's executive. I apologise for any inconvenience this may have caused, but it's important members have all the information in front of them and time to digest the information prior to any decision being taken. Based on the number of questions I've received ahead of tonight's meeting, I feel this is the case. So with regret, I propose that the item be withdrawn from tonight's agenda and consider at a future meeting of the Executive once additional relevant information has been added and the opportunity to engage members further. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chief Executive. And I would like to thank you for that statement. I believe with the best of intentions and in a measure to get through the governance process in order to proceed with what is essentially a significant concept for an opportunity for Rochford District Council, some key aspects of engagement and scrutiny have not yet been thorough and have not taken place. And I believe it is right and proper, and certainly in the light of the questions that you have been asked, I have been asked, to acknowledge that concern, and it is therefore right and proper to defer this item so that process can actually happen. So, members, is that agreed? Agreed. Agreed. Thank you very much indeed, and thank you to you and officers for your understanding on that too. Which takes us on to item 10. And this is the report to the meeting under the portfolio of housing, assets and leisure on the regeneration strategy 2022 to 2040. And I turn to Councillor Mike Webb for you to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, the Council Business Plan 2020-23 states, "We will invest in the future of the district to stimulate growth and prosperity, as well as attracting investors and visitors. We will support residents, local businesses and organisations to create a district full of great life, opportunities and choices, business growth and economic security." Chairman, I'm pleased to be part of a forward-thinking council, a council that is proactive in reaching out to the community and exploring opportunities for growth and prosperity. In these uncertain and challenging times, it is right that the Council takes the lead to stimulate regeneration. To that end, the Council proposes to develop a regeneration strategy to support our strategic regeneration ambition and delivery of the business plan objectives. Regenerations of sites in the district is central to this ambition and is ever more important to secure growth in the local economy and post-pandemic recovery. This vision for a regeneration strategy demonstrates the Council's appetite for taking a proactive role in regenerating its assets within the district. The primary objective is to support delivery of the Council's social purpose and strategic regeneration ambitions. I will ensure that the regeneration strategy is community-driven and delivers positive outcomes for the community. I also welcome working with executive members in the drafting of the strategy, as this is such a wide-ranging and important issue for our district, and I also intend for a draft copy of the strategy to go to ONS as well. And my thanks to the officers for the work that they've done behind the scenes in preparing this work. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. And I don't know whether Matt Harwood-White, as Assistant Director Assets and Commercial, you wish to add anything?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Webb's covered the key points. I'll just reiterate the opportunity the Council has at this time to really lead that place-shaping role, that regeneration role, crucially engaging with our community throughout that process. So I'll just highlight that opportunity here. I look forward to working with Councillor Webb and other members on the strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Members, are there any questions following that introduction? No questions? Right. Notwithstanding item 9, which has been withdrawn, but when you actually look at item 10, this is the exciting part of being in Rochford District Council. I don't wish to play down the excellent work in terms of cutting grass, collecting waste, planning services, licensing, revenues and benefits, and the myriad of other things that we do as business as usual. But this is also about place shaping and the opportunity to realise and make Rochford, the district, an even better place in which to live and work. So I really welcome this paper and it sets the scene for regeneration in the district. So thank you very much indeed for your presentation. And I will turn, if there's no further questions, I will turn to the decision being recommended at page 10.1 at item 1, that the emerging vision for a regeneration strategy to support the Council's strategic regeneration ambition and delivery of the business plan objectives be noted. Members, is that noted? Thank you. I turn to item 11, which is a report to this meeting specifically about Section 106 quarterly briefing, and that's this month's report, and turn to the portfolio for strategic planning. Councillor Ian Ward to introduce the report, no doubt ably assisted by the Director of Place, Phil Drain.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I think if we look at 2.1, the simple statement there, it is important that the Council routinely monitors its position with respect to Section 106 contributions to ensure that infrastructure associated with development can be delivered in a timely and effective way. All the various items are in the document. I don't know if there are any questions that other members wish to ask me, but I have received some questions that I would like to answer here and now, if I may, Chairman.
Right, okay, you go ahead with
Thank you very much indeed,
these
Chairman.
virtual questions that you've received. Right.
It was basically in relationship to what happens to the education money, and I was asked this specifically because it's not noted in this particular document. It only contains those items referred as NHS and those that are referred to our own that we hold ourselves. So basically, the RDC does not directly monitor 106 contributions that are payable to Essex County Council. All Section 106s set out which contributions are payable to Rochford District Council and which are payable to Essex County Council. In all instances, Essex County Council is legally the appropriate body for receiving contributions relating to county matters, that is, education, transport, sustainable travel, etc. Rochford District Council does not handle these contributions at any point. They are directly transferred from the developer to Essex County Council and then spent by Essex County Council on appropriate capital projects. These capital projects would be agreed through Essex County Council's own internal governance. Rochford District Council periodically requests monitoring information from Essex County Council to include, for example, a list of all contributions due or held by Essex County Council, including their purpose and any refund date. This information will be requested again and included in a future report. However, other than making representations to Essex County Council, Rochford District Council has no ability to directly determine how or when these contributions are spent. Similarly, Essex County Council cannot determine how and when contributions held by Rochford District Council are spent. Thank you, Chairman. I hope that satisfies the questions I've received. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Any questions for Councillor Ward? Councillor Belton.
Thank you. Not so much a question, but just a thank you for providing this report in such a user-friendly and digestible manner. Previous versions historically have been quite difficult to decipher, and I think we all agree Section 106 money, as you pointed out at the beginning of your statement, it's critical that it gets spent in full and in a timely manner. So just a thank you for presenting it in such a way that we can all understand and ensure that we follow up on.
Councillor Belton.
Thank you, Councillor Belton. Any other questions or points? Councillor Efty.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick question for Councillor Ward. I noticed on the report that some of the money is indefinite and some has dates on it. Can you maybe explain why that is? Maybe why they're not all indefinite?
I'm going to pass across to my officer to explain, because a lot of the report was put in by himself.
Thank you, Councillor Ward, and thank you, Councillor Efty. It really comes down to what it says in the relevant Section 106 agreement. You will find that some Section 106 agreements include what we call clawback clauses. So after a period of, say, 10 or 15 years, the developer has a right to ask for that money back. The logic being, of course, that if that money hasn't been spent in that period of time, then arguably it probably wasn't required. And you'll find that some Section 106 agreements do not include such clawback clauses. It really bottoms down to whether or not the developer specifically requests that clause when that agreement's being drafted. And some contributions are just of a nature where perhaps because of the purpose, developers might be less inclined to ask for that money back or not. So it comes down to how that 106 agreement specifically has been drafted and whether the developer has requested that clause be included.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Efty. Any other further points? No. Well, I should have said in the introduction that Councillor Ward will be ably assisted by the Team Leader of Strategic Development, Daniel Goodman. Thank you very much indeed for being here. And you got off with it lightly, Director of Place, Phil Drain, because Daniel was an excellent explainer of one of the questions. So thank you very much indeed, and for giving up your time this evening. Thank you. So if there's no further, what I am going to say is this is in part how infrastructure will be delivered through Section 106 funding. I have used the roundabout at the end of Rorath Lane and Hullbridge Road for a long time as fairly simple infrastructure at relatively low cost in terms of the big monies through 106 and a joint partnership. To resolve a huge amount of traffic congestion. So when I hear residents telling me, well, we need infrastructure, yes, they're absolutely right. I don't disagree with them at all. But this is how, in part, infrastructure is delivered at a local level. And how we actually make the lives of residents much better. I, along with the rest of you, will have sat in queues for many, many minutes. I won't exaggerate by saying hours, but I've sat for many, many minutes in Rorath Lane waiting to get through that junction in the old days. And yet now you just roll up to it and it just makes the whole congestion there so much easier. So that is an example of good infrastructure in the district, and there's other good examples as well. So thank you for this report, and turning to page 11.1, item 1, decision being recommended at 1.1 that the decision on section 106 contributions as at the 1st of October 2022 be noted. Members, is that noted? Thank you very much indeed. And thank you for concisely putting the list, which when I became leader, I asked for a decent list that we could all understand on 106, as I did on brownfield sites. So I asked for a decent list on brownfield sites as well. And we've got it now. So thank you, Councillor Ward, for your work on that. Right, we turn to item 12. I think it continues to be your lucky night, Councillor Ward, because I think this is another report for you to introduce, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Lucky me. I am going to introduce Daniel Goodman again. I would like to speak after, but I believe he wants to actually put this local plan assessment in simpler forms on the screen. So if you'd like to pay attention, I'm going to hand over to Daniel to go through exactly what is being presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Yes, so for members' benefit, what we are looking to do here really is just to go through the report in chunks, because I appreciate it's quite a technical report and it probably comes across slightly duplicative at points. So I thought perhaps going through some slides might be useful in the sense of going through some of the points in detail. So, as members will be aware, we are working on a new local plan for the district. We expect that new local plan to set a 20-year planning strategy up to at least the year 2040. And a transport assessment is clearly a fundamental component of the evidence base for that plan. So, in simplest terms that I can put forward, the transport assessment has two main roles. The first role is to support the selection of a development strategy, so where new development will be allowed and the scale of that development. And the way it does that is it clearly looks at the capacity of the network as presently exists, and it looks at its ability to cope with that extra demand. But it also identifies any new infrastructure needed to make the network cope, if you like. So that might be new junction improvements, or it could be a link road, or it could be any kind of sustainable transport solution that might be required. So as I said, we're at a key stage of the local plan, and we are looking to progress now with this more detailed transport work to support that next stage. So some transport work has already been done. However, this was not looking at the impacts of growth cumulatively. So it's not looking at how 20 years worth of development might affect the network. It was looking more at whether individual sites were acceptable in their own right. So there is now that need for that more technical cumulative assessment, if you like. We use the phrase model-based because the way that we would look to do that is by essentially looking at a kind of computer-based system that says this is where in the district new development might be located and this is how much, and through some clever technical work, it can calculate what that means in terms of junction waiting times, congestion levels, air quality, all those kind of things. And obviously we can then interpret those outcomes and work out what's best. So at the meeting of the executive held on the 13th of July this year, and further to consideration of the issue at overview and scrutiny in that same month, the executive previously asked for consultative options to be considered by the Planning Policy Committee. So the Planning Policy Committee has considered the issue at its meeting on the 30th of August, and hence why we are back today reporting on that process. So the summary of those two options, the first option was to work with Essex County Council to commission the further phase of work using the County Council's partner organisation, Jacobs. The alternative was to tender for a third-party consultant to do that work. And the report, which I won't repeat, sets out the potential pros and cons of both options. In summary, some advantages were identified under option A purely because existing modelling already exists, and so there may be advantages in terms of time and money in avoiding that modelling being done again. And the opposite, I suppose, is true of option B. However, the methodology for interpreting this modelling would be practically the same, and both options are able to meet the Council's technical requirements. And so in that sense, there is no better or worse option necessarily from the perspective of its outputs. The outcomes under either option would need to be reviewed by Essex County Council as the local transport authority. However, across the county, both option A and option B have been taken by different authorities, and they've both been proven to work. So the Planning Policy Committee were in favour of option B, as outlined in the report, and option B, just to remind you, was to go out to a tender exercise to appoint a third-party consultant. And the reason given was that it represented public opinion, was taken into account, and provided a good level of evidence with a fresh approach to traffic assessment within the area. And so the Planning Policy Committee resolved to indicate support for option B. So that's the end of the slightly briefer than I expected presentation, but I'll just remind members of what the recommendations in the report were. But I'll hand back over to Councillor Ward to speak now, if that's okay.
Thank you, Daniel. I think it's important to note that no matter which consultancy is used, Essex County Council are the highway authority and will need to endorse the assessment undertaken. They will use Jacobs to undertake an assessment of any third party's consultant's work, and therefore using a third party consultant would never be fully independent of Jacobs' involvement. The advantage of using Jacobs directly is the lower cost and timescales involved in being able to access their existing South Essex model, and the need for no assessment in that third-party consultancy's work. However, there may be advantages in using a third-party consultancy in the sense that it may bring two expert opinions forward, that is, the third party and Jacobs, and therefore less reliance on a single option. Therefore, I would like to propose a change, and if I may set it out in a way that I think we can all understand. So I'd like to revise 1.1, the decision being recommended, and I would like it to read thus. The Executive resolves to pursue option B as set out in this report and authorise a drawdown of up to £200,000 from the Local Development Framework Reserve to fund the assessment, noting that option B may incur additional cost. I would like a seconder, please. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
Councillor Ward proposing, seconded by Councillor Efty. Thank you very much.
Can I speak as well?
Oh, was that a hand to speak
Yeah,
rather than
I
second?
don't mind seconding as
You're
well,
happening to second. Councillor Efty.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to, happy to support Councillor Ward's option B in this, and a practical term in this is going to last for 20 years, hopefully, at least to 2040. And I sit on the development committee, and sometimes when a highways opinion comes back and we feel very strongly that we disagree, it always comes back, well, you've got to get another opinion, and this will give us another opinion. So I think this is really good for future developments. We have got two opinions on this, and we're not just relying on Essex Highways. So I'd really like to offer my support for this.
Thank you. If I can also add that I would like item 1.2 remaining the same, please. No change.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Sperring.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one question. I don't have a problem with your proposal, Councillor Ward, but could we find ourselves in a catch-22 where we want to take option B's independent third-party recommendation and Essex don't agree with it and then play hardball and we end up in an impasse for a foreseeable future? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not against your proposal, but I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here a little bit.
I think I've asked Daniel to look into various things, and I've done so myself. The connection between Jacobs and Ringway Jacobs is very certain. The particular company, Jacobs UK Limited, is a 50% shareholder in Ringway Jacobs, as is Eurovia, which is a 50% shareholder who own Ringway. So we felt that it may be better to have a third party who had no pecuniary interest to have a look at it, even though Jacobs will again be assessing, as they are the main representatives for highways within Essex County Council.
Thank you. Councillor Ward, you want to add to that, Phil Drain?
Thank you, Chairman. Just in terms of helping Councillor Sperring on the question, it's important to remember that the local plan is a Rochford District Council document. This is evidence-based for the local plan. Therefore, it is for the council to make a decision on who undertakes evidence. I think what the report helpfully sets out is it may take slightly longer on the basis of gaining Essex County Council support, but ultimately Essex County Council cannot block that decision. It just potentially takes slightly longer to work with them on the outcomes of commissioning such work.
Thank you, that was helpful. Councillor Belton.
Thank you. Councillor Sperring pretty much asked the question, but just to clarify, once this assessment is done and becomes part of our local plan, can Highways, as the main authority and having Jacobs or Ringway Jacobs as their chosen partner, could they sort of veto our views? Could they sort of supersede them or stamp out our views because they're the authority?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Belton. I think no is the answer. It becomes a technical conversation as to whether the consultant has undertaken things from a technical standpoint in the correct way and using the correct assumptions that County Council as a Highways Authority would then agree with. So in essence, it removes Rochford District Council from the process of undertaking the work because it becomes an expert independent consultant's view that is then discussed directly with Essex County Council. My experience of this is that takes time and can be quite painful, but from the experience of other authorities doing it in terms of option A, I think it's an equally painful process. So unfortunately, it does take time and it is complicated, but the answer is no.
Any other questions? No? Okay. All right. So if we turn to the report itself at page 12.1, we've had a proposal that 1.1 as a recommendation, decision being recommended, be amended. Can I ask you, Councillor Ward, please to read that recommendation again?
Oh, certainly. That the executive resolves to pursue option B as set out in this report and authorise a drawdown of up to £200,000 from the Local Development Framework Reserve to fund the assessment, noting that option B may incur additional cost.
Thank you. And my understanding is, as that is a replacement recommendation as opposed to an amendment, we can go straight to a vote on the replacement if officers are content with that. Yeah? Okay. Right. In that case, can I put that to the vote? Is that agreed? Unanimous agreement on the part of the executive. And I think if I understood you correctly, Councillor Ward, you're proposing leaving 1.2 exactly as it is, in which case I'll read that one out, that authority be delegated to the Director of Place in consultation with the portfolio holder for strategic planning to manage the delivery of the assessment reporting into the Planning Policy Committee. Members, is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much again, unanimous. That, members, concludes this evening's executive concluding at 8:14. And I'd like to thank members for your time this evening, thank officers for your time, and thank members of the public for your time, and wish you a very pleasant rest of your evening. Thank you very much indeed, and the meeting is concluded. Thank you.